I lost faith in myself after that evening. But what happened next made me fight like never before. Stay tuned to see an unexpected twist at the end of this story. I'd heard the name Clark more than once, always buried in Lori's stories about work. Too casual, too rehearsed. Clark stayed late to help, or Clark had a meltdown over printer ink. She made him sound like an office background prop, but I remembered every mention. I couldn't explain why at the time, just something off in the way she said it, like she was trying too hard to sound effortless. I told myself I was overthinking. Between running the shop and making sure the kids weren't turning feral, I didn't have energy to chase shadows. Marriage's silent agreement is built on trust, especially when there's no proof not to. But that trust died the day I came home early. Practice let out sooner than usual. Coach had a family thing, so I grabbed the kids and figured maybe I'd surprise Lori. When I turned into the driveway, I immediately saw it. A black coupe, sleek and clean, parked just off-center like someone didn't want it visible from the road. Out-of-state plates, tinted windows, the kind of car that screams, "Don't ask questions." The kids rushed in ahead of me, tossing their backpacks in the hallway, arguing about snacks. I told them I needed to check something downstairs. That's when I heard it. Loud music blaring from the basement. That pop song Lori always mocked whenever it played. Once she called it high school heartbreak garbage, so hearing it that loud in our house felt like hearing laughter at a funeral. I moved quietly down the stairs, every step harder than the last. And when I turned into the room, my world cracked in half. She was on her knees, in her underwear, hair tangled in a stranger's hand, his belt loose, shirt open, face tilted back like he was the goddamn king of something. She looked up at him with eyes I hadn't seen in years. They didn't hear me, not with the bass rattling the floor and their blood rushing too loud in their heads. My fists clenched. My heart stopped, then roared back to life. I could have broken him in half, could have dragged her out by the wrist, but I didn't. I pulled out my phone, hit record. My hand was steady. Don't ask me how. I got their faces, got the angle, got the moment they crossed the line so clearly it could be screened in court. Then I left, walked upstairs like a ghost, closed the door behind me. I couldn't feel anything, couldn't breathe right. I sat in the car for 2 hours, hands shaking on the wheel, staring through the windshield like the right move would appear out of the clouds. Eventually I got out, circled the house, and filmed the car. Clean shot of the license plate. Then the guy, Clark, I assumed, stepped outside to smoke. Tall, cocky posture, smug in his stolen moment. I filmed that too. My silence was a blade he never saw coming. I texted Lori a photo from the basement video. Caption, "Nice song, nice show." 5 minutes later, she called. I didn't answer. The phone buzzed over and over. Clark tried calling too. That one made me laugh. I dropped the kids at my mom's. Told her I needed a night to think. She didn't press. She heard something in my voice. She always did. I checked into a hotel under a fake name, sat down and opened my laptop, made a new folder, named it The End. That was the moment I stopped being a husband. From that second on, I became something else. I spent the whole night going through the footage, freezing frames, taking screenshots, making backups. It was like surgery. Cold, precise, methodical. No emotion, just evidence, just truth. I documented everything I could remember. Every time she said his name, every time she came home late, every excuse I didn't question. By sunrise, I had it all, a foundation, a strategy, proof that the woman I married wasn't just unfaithful, she was reckless, arrogant, and sloppy. And now I had the tools to make sure it all came back to her, slow and sharp. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was just the start. The next morning came like a punch. I hadn't slept, barely blinked, but sunlight still managed to feel like an insult. My phone was already buzzing before I even looked at it. 32 messages, 11 missed calls, all from Lori, all lined up like a desperate countdown. I opened the first one. "It's not what you think." The second, "Please call me. We need to talk." Then the real kicker, a message from a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized the face from the video. Clark, can we talk man to man? I actually laughed when I read that. I stared at those words, half smiling, like they belonged to a comic strip and not the man who was holding my wife's hair 24 hours earlier. Man to man. The gall of it. He had no idea what I'd already done. I sent him a picture, just one. It was from his company's locker room, him standing with another employee, both shirtless, half-dressed, drinking beers with office tags still on. I followed that with a clean PDF titled HR_violation report.pdf addressed to Lori's company. It outlined a full complaint of workplace misconduct with attached images, behavior summaries, and timestamps that matched the chat history I'd pulled off her phone using a recovery app. A few words into the file: unreported intimacy between staff, misuse of company property, and possible collusion regarding company funds. I didn't send it to HR, not yet, but he didn't know that. Lori's texts kept coming, frantic now. Paragraphs, voice messages, the entire emotional scale: rage, fear, begging, threats. But she still hadn't realized the kids weren't home. So while she was chasing ghosts, I was packing real bags. I drove to the house that afternoon. Didn't even go inside at first. Just stood in the driveway and stared at it. The windows looked too clean. The flowers she planted last spring were still blooming by the porch. It felt fake, like a memory someone built from scratch. I unlocked the front door and walked into what used to be a life. Everything was exactly where we left it. Shoes by the door, a framed photo of our daughter holding her first baseball glove, the smell of her perfume still clinging to the air. But none of it meant anything now. It felt hollow, staged, like someone else's house. I went straight to the closet, grabbed the suitcases, and packed the kids' clothes. School records, passports, medical documents. I made sure to take only what they'd need. I wasn't running. I was preparing. There's a difference. Once everything was packed and loaded in the car, I left a note on the counter. Just one sentence. The kids are safe. Don't look for them. I shut the door behind me and walked away from everything we'd built, or what I thought we built. That house had become a grave, and I wasn't leaving anyone buried in it. At the hotel, I made 3 separate backups of all evidence. One on a USB, one in encrypted cloud storage, and one hidden on a burner phone I'd picked up that morning. Paranoia? Maybe. But when your wife cheats on you in your own home, with your kids' toys still in the room above her, paranoia starts to feel like common sense. That night, I went back through her deleted messages. The app my tech buddy gave me dug deeper than I thought possible. Entire conversations spilled out. Months of them. Clark wasn't just a fling. He was a plan. They'd been talking about leaving together, scheming. There were texts about getting access to dormant funds, mentions of selling our house from under the dead weight, and a thread labeled clean exit strategy. I sat there reading my own erasure, written by the woman I once thought would bury me with her wedding ring still on. One line stuck with me. Once the money clears, we disappear. And beneath it, Lori had sent a heart emoji. That's when it changed for me. The betrayal wasn't about sex anymore. It was theft. It was an attempted execution of the life I built. It was war. I contacted a lawyer first, someone with fire in her voice and zero tolerance for bullshit. Sent her everything. She asked if I wanted to file immediately. I told her no. Not yet. There was more. Next, I forwarded the messages to Lori's parents. All the evidence of the affair, the financial planning, and the parts where she referred to her children as collateral. I attached everything neatly, respectfully, with a simple message. I'm sorry you had to see this. That night, I arranged a meeting with Clark. It wasn't hard to find out where he worked. Lori had mentioned it once during a fight, thinking I wasn't listening. I reached out from an anonymous email, pretending to be a freelance property buyer. Told him I was interested in investing in his new project, the one he was launching with the stolen half of my savings. He took the bait. We met in a parking lot behind a closed restaurant. I was already parked when he arrived, walking like a man who thought he'd won something. He had that same look from the basement, smug, unbothered, already spending money that wasn't his. But this time there were eyes on him. The camera I'd set up was aimed clean at his face. Audio running. I waited until he stepped close enough, then handed him a folder. Inside, all of it. Printed screenshots, chat logs, a copy of the draft complaint to his HR department, and a police statement referencing past financial violations at his previous job. He opened it, flipped through, didn't say a word. That smirk he wore dropped off his face like dead weight. I said one thing. Congratulations. Your face is now on the HR Hall of Fame. Then I got in my car and drove off, left him standing there with the camera still rolling. I didn't sleep that night either, but it wasn't from rage anymore. It was the first breath after nearly drowning, sharp, painful, but real, and I knew it wasn't over. Lori came home to a grave. Not a home, not anymore. The silence was heavy, the kind that follows after something has died. No kids' voices, no sounds from the TV, not even the soft thud of her keys hitting the counter. Just empty space and a single note beside our wedding photo. The kids are safe. Don't look for them. She called me 13 times that night. All went to voicemail. She texted until her desperation twisted into rage. Apologies became threats. I didn't respond. She needed to feel it. The fear, the confusion, the loss. I'd felt it first. Now it was her turn. While she spun in circles, I was building firewalls. I had the video. I had screenshots. But I needed more, hard proof. Not just for emotion, but for court. So I called Shane, an old friend who now handled digital forensics. Within hours, he'd recovered dozens of messages Lori thought she'd buried. They'd been planning everything. The affair wasn't just physical, it was financial. Hidden money transfers disguised as business investments. Mentions of a marketing venture that didn't exist. I sat in my car, kids sleeping in the back, listening to Shane list out every move she made. One message from Lori read, "We'll have to move the money slowly. Can't risk alerting the banks." It stopped being about betrayal right then. This wasn't infidelity. It was theft. Premeditated and quiet. She wasn't just breaking our vows. She was bleeding the family dry behind my back. I had Shane build a full timeline. Every dollar, every text, every lie. Then I called my lawyer. Sent everything. She asked if I wanted to initiate custody filings. I said yes. But before that, I needed Lori to feel it. The cost of her choices. I sent her one photo, our youngest asleep in the back seat, arms around the stuffed dinosaur she'd forgotten she bought. Caption, "This is who you hurt." She didn't respond. Not a word. The next day, I drove to her parents' house and handed her father a flash drive. No explanation. Just a nod. He took it like he already knew. That kind of disappointment doesn't need words. Then came her counterstrike. A lawyer's letter claiming I'd kidnapped the children during a mental health episode, said I'd destabilized the home, claimed the kids were unsafe. My attorney called it laughable. I didn't laugh. I filed a countersuit. We came back with everything. Affair evidence, recovered messages, financial fraud, and something new. Audio clips. In one, she threatened suicide if I didn't let her see the kids. "I swear I'll end it if I don't see them by Friday," she whispered. I had it recorded. My lawyer submitted it all. The judge didn't hesitate. I was granted temporary custody. Lori was given restricted visitation and ordered into psychological evaluation. She didn't take it well. A few days later, the school called. Someone had tried to pick up the kids early, a woman claiming to be a family friend, but she didn't know the kids' birthdays or teachers' names. Security stopped her. Cameras caught everything. She panicked and ran. I recognized her from a company party years ago, one of Lori's co-workers. I sent the footage to my lawyer and the investigator. This wasn't a custody fight anymore. This was attempted custodial interference. It was criminal now. I hired a private investigator full-time. I needed eyes on Lori. She was spiraling, and I couldn't risk her dragging the kids down with her. A day later, she vanished. Phone off. No contact. Her office said she hadn't shown up or called in. The PI tracked her car to a motel an hour out of town. When he arrived, the room was already empty. She was gone. That night, my daughter asked why Mom wasn't answering texts. My son kept glancing at the window like she might show up. I didn't have answers I could give. Just held them close and said, "You're safe now." I meant it, even if I wasn't sure anymore. Whatever Lori was planning next, it wasn't over. She came back on a Tuesday. No warning, no messages. Just silence for 5 days. And then suddenly she was standing outside my lawyer's office with a fresh lawyer of her own. Young, smooth, and expensive. She wasn't dressed like herself. No makeup, hair tied back, wearing some oversized sweatshirt like she wanted to look helpless. I got the call 15 minutes later. She was requesting an emergency mediation. My attorney and I showed up. I didn't bring the kids. No way I was letting her weaponize them again. We sat across from each other in a stale room filled with forced civility. Her new lawyer smiled like this was a traffic violation, not the collapse of a family. Lori avoided my eyes until she dropped the bomb. She slid a sealed envelope across the table. Her lawyer said softly, "We'd like to introduce new context to the custody case." Inside was a pregnancy test. Positive. For a second, the room felt like it tilted. I didn't say anything, just stared at it, at the two pink lines like they were mocking me. Her lawyer continued, talking about responsibility, paternal rights, how this changes everything. But Lori, she finally looked up, and I saw it. Not pain, not fear, just calculation. This was a move, a strategy. I asked for a DNA test, said it calmly, coldly. Her face didn't even flinch. Her lawyer said, "Of course, already expecting it." That told me everything I needed to know. The results came in fast. 3 days later. Not mine. It was Clark's. My attorney emailed the results with a brief message. This should settle that. I stared at the paper and I didn't feel rage, just numb. Like there wasn't enough space left inside me for new anger. It all blurred together. The cheating, the lies, the theft. Now this. But the worst wasn't even what the paper said. It was how the kids reacted. When I sat them down to talk, not even about the test, just about mom maybe coming around again, my daughter stayed quiet. Too quiet. And my son, the youngest, finally looked up and asked, "Is that why she didn't come to my performance?" That broke me. Not the betrayal, not the infidelity. It was that question. Because I remembered that night. He wore a stupid little cape and sang his heart out. She said she had a client dinner. I took pictures, sent them to her. She never replied. She wasn't at a dinner. That night, I sat alone after putting the kids to bed, trying to decide if any of this was salvageable. But the answer kept showing up in her own words. Because earlier that day before court, I'd uncovered something else. An audio recording from one of her deleted voice memos. My investigator pulled it from her old iCloud backups. In it, Lori was talking to Clark, mid-laugh, saying they could push Michael out of the house by convincing him to sell. She even joked about using our daughter to guilt me into moving faster. Just remind him she hates the school. That'll get him emotional. I played that clip aloud in the kitchen, not because I wanted to hear it again, but because I wanted it to stain the air. I wanted to hear her say it in her own voice. That was the moment the guilt I'd been carrying, the doubt, the hesitation, finally vanished. She didn't stumble into a mistake. She engineered a collapse. The next day, I made my final bank move. I froze every remaining joint asset, rerouted the shop accounts to a new legal entity, and had the house evaluated for equity proceedings. My lawyer warned me it might provoke her. I didn't care. There was nothing left for her to take. Not physically, not emotionally. But Lori still tried. She showed up at the house again, this time when I wasn't there. She rang the doorbell until her knuckles must have gone red. The nanny was with the kids. She didn't open. Lori yelled, screamed, begged, said she was carrying part of this family. The cameras caught it all. That footage went straight to the case file. Unstable behavior, unapproved contact, violation of the court's distance restrictions. My attorney smiled when she saw it, not because it was good news, but because it was predictable. Lori was unraveling, and Clark wasn't showing up anymore. I hadn't heard from him since the parking lot. My guess, he saw the paperwork, saw the lawsuit threats, and cut her loose. That's what people like him do when things get real. That weekend, I got another surprise. A package arrived at the shop. No name, no return address. Just a plain envelope with a USB inside and a note. "You missed this." I almost threw it away, but I plugged it in. More messages. Not between Lori and Clark this time. Between Lori and her friend. The same woman who tried to take the kids from school. In them, Lori outlined a fallback plan if she lost custody. Something about getting emergency relocation support from a shelter by pretending abuse. My name was mentioned several times. She even asked, how long would I have to stay in a women's center before I could file for full? Her friend said 2 months might be enough. I felt sick, not even angry, just hollow. She had mapped it all out, a fake version of events ready to deploy if things didn't go her way. I didn't say anything to the kids about any of it. I just packed a bag, drove us to the lake for the weekend, and let them be kids. Fishing, campfires, a world with no courtrooms or files or hidden recorders. But even there, even in the quiet, I could feel the weight of what was still coming, because Lori wasn't done. Lori wasn't unraveling, she was detonating. After the DNA results, I expected her to swing back hard, and she did. Within a week, she filed another court motion. Emotional trauma this time. Claimed I'd poisoned the kids against her and turned the home into a psychological prison. She moved fast, like she wanted to hit first before we even stood up. She didn't land a single punch. I walked into court armed with more than legal counsel. I had footage, messages, reports, timelines. The entire paper trail of her collapse. Videos of her pounding on our front door, screaming while the kids were inside. A report from the school about her friend's attempt to pick them up under false pretenses. Screenshots of her going dark for days, leaving the kids asking if she even cared. My lawyer laid it all out. Quiet, surgical. The court upheld full custody again. Added a new restraining order. No contact unless approved in writing. No visits without formal, supervised arrangement. Her lawyer mumbled something about emotional instability. It didn't matter. Weeks later, he pulled out of the case completely. She stopped showing up, but she didn't disappear. My investigator caught her trying to hire a nanny using a fake name. Said she just needed someone to help with her kids. The agency flagged it. We shut it down fast. After that, she started popping up where she didn't belong. Across the street from the school, behind a grocery store lot. Never close enough to break the order, just close enough to be seen. She wanted us to feel her watching. My daughter closed her blinds for the first time. My son asked, "Do we have to move again?" That question hit like a gut punch. I'd promised them safety. I'd promised her chaos wouldn't reach us here. That night, I drove back to the old house. It looked like a ghost. Yard overgrown, windows dark, shutters hanging loose. It wasn't a home anymore, just the shell of one. I didn't even get out, just stared at it, reminded myself what she'd turned it into. When I got home, the kids were asleep. My phone buzzed. New file from the investigator. Lori was bouncing between motels. No income, no contact with Clark. He'd blocked her, vanished completely. Cowards don't stick around for cleanup. The next morning, she left a voicemail. Blocked number. Her voice cracked. "I need to see them, please. I'm not okay. 5 minutes. That's all." I didn't answer. Sent the audio straight to my lawyer. Hours later, her mother called me for the first time since everything broke apart. She was crying. Said Lori had shown up at their house screaming threats, throwing a rock through the kitchen window. Her own mother had to lock herself in the bathroom until the cops came. They didn't press charges, just wrote the report. But they'd finally stopped defending her. I added the report to the file. I didn't feel much. Not pity, not rage, just numb. All my anger had been spent already, burned out on betrayal and courtrooms and custody threats. Now it was just survival. For me, for the kids. That night we sat outside wrapped in a blanket under the stars. The kids were laughing. Real laughter. The kind that didn't have fear behind it. For a second, I let myself believe the storm was behind us. Then the motion alert went off. Front gate. Camera feed lit up. It was her. Barefoot, hair tangled, standing in the road just outside the driveway. She looked like she hadn't slept or eaten in days. Hoodie hanging off her shoulder, face blank. She didn't move when the lights came on, just stared at the house, like she was trying to remember what it felt like to belong there. I walked outside, stayed on the porch. "I don't want trouble," I said. "Don't come back." She didn't respond. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something. Maybe apologize, maybe scream, but nothing came out. After a long pause, she turned and walked away. No shoes, no bag, no direction. I waited until she was gone. Inside, the kids were on the stairs. My daughter holding a baseball bat, my son gripping her arm. Neither said anything. They didn't have to. We locked the door. I sat down between them, still hearing Lori's footsteps fading in the night, echoing somewhere in the back of my head. And I knew this wasn't finished. Not yet. I didn't hear from her for 3 weeks. No calls, no sightings, no motion alerts in the night. Part of me hoped she'd finally realized it was over, that she'd packed up the wreckage and disappeared somewhere far enough not to poison us anymore. But hope, I've learned, is just delayed heartbreak. Because when she came back, she didn't knock on a door or stand in a driveway. This time she came with papers. Official. Stamped. Served. She was suing for joint custody again. This time with a new claim. Stability. Said she was in therapy, attending meetings, getting her life in order. Attached was a letter from a licensed counselor, the kind of generic fluff that sounds concerned but says nothing. She claimed she had housing secured, employment pending, and was rebuilding a safe environment. No evidence, just declarations. My lawyer called it a Hail Mary, a last-ditch attempt to look functional before the final hearing, but I didn't underestimate her. Not anymore. That night, I opened the old backups again, the audio files, the chat logs, the photographs I hadn't looked at since the early days, the ones that still made my stomach turn. I organized everything, updated timestamps, made it airtight. I wasn't just defending custody, I was defending peace. I also started prepping the kids, carefully, quietly, not with fear, but with truth. I told them there might be another court date, that someone might ask them questions about how they feel, what they've seen, what they remember. My daughter nodded quietly. My son just asked if he could bring his stuffed dinosaur. He still didn't know what his mom had tried to do. The night before the first mediation meeting, I got another anonymous message. No name, no subject, just a single attachment, another recording. It was Lori and Clark again. This one was older, buried in some recovered voicemail data. She was venting. Drunk, maybe. The audio was grainy, but the words were clear. If I can just get the house in my name, he'll cave. He always folds when the kids are involved. It made my blood go cold. She'd always seen me as predictable. A father first. Someone who could be leveraged. Someone she could break without having to destroy. But she underestimated one thing. I'd been keeping score. The mediation was a disaster for her. She arrived late, looked fragile on purpose. Same oversized sweater routine. No makeup, hair pulled back, like she wanted to look too broken to be dangerous. But my lawyer was ready. We presented a timeline, not just of her actions, but of her patterns. The fake pregnancy plea, the false abuse plan, the attempted school pickup, every violation, every manipulation, layered piece by piece until the picture was too clear to ignore. She cried halfway through. Maybe for real this time. Maybe not. Then she dropped a new twist, said she'd entered a women's recovery program, had a sponsor, and that the court was legally obligated to consider a mother's recovery journey. She quoted family law like she'd been rehearsing it in front of a mirror. The mediator didn't buy it. Asked for proof. Lori claimed it was private for now. We left the room knowing what was coming. She wasn't going to let go, even if it meant dragging us all through the mud until nothing was left. And the kids felt it too. My daughter started waking up in the middle of the night again. I'd find her sitting in the hallway, just staring down the stairs like she expected Lori to crawl back in through the dark. My son stopped talking about school projects and started asking what would happen if Mommy came to live with us again. I didn't have the heart to lie. I reminded them both that no matter what, they weren't alone. I told them they had choices, that they were allowed to feel safe, that if someone ever made them feel scared, they didn't have to smile through it. A week later, the private investigator delivered a final report, a full surveillance timeline of Lori's last 30 days. It was bad. No verified address, no employment. She had spent time in a shelter briefly, then moved to a rental property listed under someone else's name, likely a friend. No job, no clear rehab program, no custody-worthy stability, just more shadows. But what hit hardest was the visit to Clark's office. The investigator got footage. Lori showing up to the building where Clark had a shared business address. She waited outside for almost 2 hours before a security guard escorted her off the property. She looked lost, not angry, not defiant, just gone, like the storm inside her had finally burned itself out, leaving nothing behind. I showed the video to no one, not even my lawyer. I kept that piece to myself, because even after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the damage, part of me still remembered the woman she used to be, or the one I thought she was, and I didn't know if that made me soft or just human. The kids and I went out that weekend, drove to the river, skipped rocks, bought ice cream from a guy in a van with duct-taped windows. For a few hours, everything felt light again, normal. But when we got home, something was off. The mailbox was open. Inside was a single piece of paper, no envelope, just folded once. "You can't erase me." No signature, no address, just that. I took it inside, burned it in the sink. Then I checked every door, every window. I double-checked the cameras and set new motion triggers. I stayed up until 3 a.m., staring at the monitor, waiting for her to show up again. But she never did. And when I finally lay down, exhausted, heart still thudding in my chest, I stared at the ceiling and asked the question I'd been avoiding for months. How does this end? It didn't end with a bang. No final courtroom drama, no last confession, just silence stretching long enough to start feeling like peace. 2 months had passed since her last message. No calls, no motion alerts. Just nothing. I focused on the kids, built new routines, simple stuff. Early mornings, fishing trips, weekend pancakes, nights without tension. I reopened the shop and put my energy into fixing things with hands that had been too used to holding damage. The house got quieter, lighter, and for the first time, I let myself believe we might actually be okay. Then one night, headlights slid across the kitchen wall. A car was parked at the edge of the trees, just far enough from the gate to stay outside the cameras. I stepped onto the porch. My daughter followed. We both knew it was Lori, barefoot again, no bags, just standing there like the dirt belonged to her. I walked halfway down the steps. She didn't move. "I just wanted to see them," she said. "They don't want to see you," I answered. She looked up toward the window, where our son stood watching. Her voice dropped. "I lost everything. You got what you wanted." "No," I said. "I protected what you tried to destroy." Then she pulled her final card. "I'm pregnant again." Flat tone, no emotion, just another attempt. I didn't even blink. "That doesn't work anymore." Her face cracked a little, but she didn't argue. She turned and walked away, slow and hollow. No screaming, no scene, just gone. This time she didn't come back. Inside, the kids were sitting on the stairs. My daughter put the bat down without saying a word. My son asked if we could watch something funny before bed. We did. The next morning, I filed for full custody, permanent. With all the records, the judge didn't ask many questions. There were no objections. No one showed up on her side. Just a signature. A chapter closed. Within the month, we moved. A mountain town in Washington, far enough that the past couldn't drive to us. I opened a small garage, fixed trucks, got grease under my nails again. The kids adjusted fast. New friends, new school, laughter that didn't feel borrowed. A local ranch boy came by the shop often, asked about engines, watched me work. I let him sweep the floor, something steady for his hands. He reminded me of myself before the storm. One afternoon, late fall, a car pulled up the drive. Black, same model. She stepped out, barefoot, still wearing the same broken silence. She looked toward the house like it might let her in again. I stepped outside, stood on the porch. "No," I said, "and don't ever come back." The kids were behind me again, my daughter with the bat, my son quiet but unafraid. Lori didn't say a word this time, just turned and walked away. We stayed there until the car disappeared into the trees. Inside, I turned on the lights. The kids laughed. The kind of laugh that comes after a storm when you realize the roof held. We didn't talk about her that night. We wouldn't again. Let her burn. Let the lies go with her. Let silence be the only thing she leaves behind. Because we were done. We were free. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.